Representative Jayapal of Massachusetts appeared on CNN's State of the Union with Dana Bash in one of the most extraordinary exchanges since October 7th that you will ever see. I want to remind you that Congresswoman Jayapal has positioned herself as one of the squad members, which of course means they're lefty, they're progressive, they champion every kind of left-wing cause, including counting themselves as the real feminists in the room. I mean, they're more feminists than the feminists are. She led the charge in the House against Brett Kavanaugh. She believed Christine Blasey Ford. Clearly, Brett Kavanaugh was raped. Brett Kavanaugh raped Christine Blasey Ford. Women must believe. All women must be believed was her position back then. Listen to her equivocate over the sexual assaults conducted by Hamas terrorists in Israel.
The other country.
I want to ask you about sexual violence. And it's kind of remarkable that this issue hasn't gotten enough attention globally. Widespread use of rape, brutal rape, sexual violence against Israeli women by Hamas. I've seen a lot of progressive women, generally speaking, they're quick to defend women's rights and speak out against using rape as a weapon of war, but downright silent on what we saw on October 7th and what might be happening inside Gaza right now to these hostages. Why is that?
Can I just, Dana Bash is a very polite young woman, and good for her, I guess, for asking this question. But if I could put it in my words, because that was way too apologetic. The way she asked that. Let me ask this Congresswoman the same question. Women were raped on October 7th. They were dragged through the streets. We've seen the images. The rapists, the Hamas terrorists that you're defending right now and making excuses for, they live streamed the sexual assaults. The women continue to be raped while they're being held. You stand up there and you grandstand like you're the voice of women and protecting women's rights all around the world. Why in the hell have you been silent? You and your fellow squad members have been calling for a ceasefire within hours of all of those rapes occurring. You've been trying to blame Israel and saying that the victims in all of these sexual assaults are really the problem. Oh, this is what an oppressed people does to their oppressor. This is what happens with an occupation. Are you kidding me? What the hell is wrong with you? That's how I would ask the question. But let's see the answer. Understand, Dana Bash asked it in the most polite, apologetic, mamby-pamby kind of, gee, I feel bad even asking this question, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. Listen to how she answers when it's set up that way.
I mean, I don't know that that's true. I think we always talk about the impact of war on women in particular. In fact, I remember 20 years ago, I did a petition around the war in Iraq.
Have you said,
saying
have
that,
you talked about it since?
Oh,
yeah. I did a petition. I did a petition about how women were treated in Iraq. Who do you think she claimed were the ones abusing the women in Iraq at that time? The Iraqi soldiers? Saddam Hussein's goons? I guarantee you that when she was talking about the suffering of women in the war in Iraq, she was blaming America. She was blaming American troops. So no, listen, I always care about how women are being treated in a war, as long as it's America or Israel or some other Western nation who's perpetrating the crimes. But, you know, you got to excuse the Hamas terrorists.
Oh, absolutely. And I've condemned what Hamas has done. I've condemned
specifically
all of
women?
the actions. Absolutely. The rape, of course. But I think.
But, you know, something tells me that when you're making a statement right there as an elected official and you're saying, yeah, the rapes are awful, but what could possibly follow that? What sane, rational, moral statement could follow the but? Well, we're about to find out. Here's Congressman Jayapal's but.
We have to remember that Israel is a democracy. That is why they are a strong ally of ours. And if they do not comply with international humanitarian law, they are bringing themselves to a place that makes it much more difficult strategically for them to be able to build the kinds of allies to keep public opinion with them.
Did you see what happened right there? Dana Bash asked her about how Hamas terrorists raped and brutalized women and continue to do so while they hold them, 8 weeks now after the terror attacks of October 7th. And Jayapal sort of waves it off with the back of her hands. Yes, I've condemned that. It's terrible. It's horrible. But, and then she went on a whole diatribe about Israel and Israel not adhering to international laws and humanitarian laws. But by the way, I keep hearing this all the time. Israel must follow the rules of international war. You know what would be awesome? If they could even articulate one violation that Israel has conducted, one violation that they're guilty of. Well, Israel has to follow the rules. It's like somebody sitting up and saying, the Philadelphia Eagles better make sure they follow the rules in the game tonight. Okay. How about this? How about you throw the flag when they break the rules and they'll be penalized? Can you name me something that Israel has done? But they all we know it's a dog whistle is what it is, if I can use the left's language. When someone like this gets in front of a camera and says, and you're going to hear Kamala Harris do basically the same thing in a little bit, when they wring their hands and they say, we just want to make sure that Israel knows that we're watching and they must adhere to every international rule when it comes to warfare. It's this implication that they violated those rules. Well, if you can name a violation, name it. Well, they bombed a hospital. No, they bombed terrorists who are hiding in a hospital and using women and children as human shields, which, by the way, violates international law when it comes to warfare. You want to find somebody breaking international law, it's the terrorists. All right, let's get back to her butt, because it's quite a butt, isn't it?
And frankly, morally, I think we cannot say that one war crime deserves another. That is not what international humanitarian law says.
Okay, with respect, I was just asking about the women, and you turned it back to Israel.
Thank you.
I'm asking you about Hamas. In fact,
I already answered your question, Dana. I said it's horrific, and I think that
I said I didn't like the rape. What more do you want from me, Dana? What's with the tone? What? It is inconceivable. Can you imagine any Republican or any conservative conducting themselves this way with this specific line of questioning? It's not even about women's rights or abortion or equal pay. This is about rape, about sexual assault. And she seems annoyed that she's even asked the question. And I was like, listen, I gave you my talking point saying I condemn violence on both sides. What more do you want from me? She also just mentioned, what would she say? One war crime doesn't deserve another. Well, clearly everything that happened October 7th is a war crime. Everything. And I mean everything. Beginning with the fact that the terrorists were dressed as civilians, which is a war crime. They work for Hamas, which is a government entity. They are a violent military subset of the Hamas government. By international rules of law, you must be identified in uniform. So from the very beginning of the October 7th terror attacks, everything about it, they specifically targeted civilians. There were no military targets involved there. We're not talking about people who get caught in the line of fire or any kind of collateral damage here. And then add to that the sexual assaults, the rapes, the kidnapping, the hostage taking, the live streams to humiliate people. Everything about it was a war crime. And then she throws out this statement, well, we don't want to equivocate. One war crime deserves another. Oh, and again, God, if only I were in Dana Bash's chair right now. Can I just identify as Dana Bash one time and do her show? If I'm saying, I would love to interrupt her and say, excuse me, you just accused Israel of a war crime. Could you name one? Name one. They can't. They throw these statements out there. Oh, war crimes, war crimes. Can you be specific? Shouldn't be too hard. Tell me the war crime Israel is guilty of. This is a sitting congresswoman for the Democrats.
Rape is horrific. Sexual assault is horrific. I think that it happens in war situations. Terrorist organizations like Hamas obviously are using these as tools. Mm-hmm. However, I think...
however, that's just a fancy butt. So we heard her butt. Now we're going to hear her fancy butt. We're going to hear her however.
we have to be balanced about bringing in the outrages against Palestinians.
Yeah.
15,000 Palestinians have been killed in Israeli airstrikes, 3/4 of whom
And it's-
are women and children.
And it's horrible, but you don't see Israeli soldiers raping.
Well, Dana, I think
Palestinian women.
we're not, I don't want this to be the hierarchy of oppressions. I
Right.
think 15,000
Shouldn't
people
be.
have been killed.
It shouldn't.
Wow. Yeah, it's not hard. Thinking things morally is not hard. Thinking through these things. Yes, 15,000 dead Palestinians, horrible. Palestinians have every opportunity to keep that from happening. They can, first of all, not hide behind civilians and embed their operations within the walls of civilian areas, number one. They could stop shooting rockets off from within civilian areas. So when Israel defends themselves by taking out the rocket positions, that means that civilians who live in the area will also be killed. So we don't do that in America. Israel doesn't do that, by the way, in their country. They could also, by the way, just stop shooting rockets altogether. That'd be a great start. They could not send their goon squad terrorists in to slaughter 1,500 innocent people in a terror attack. That would have really stopped, anything from happening in Gaza, because Gaza, for the most part, hasn't been attacked at all. In fact, every single death at the hands of an Israeli soldier in Hamas since the Gaza liberation, or when Gaza wasn't liberated, but Gaza was able to have their own rule in 2005, every single death at the hands of an Israeli military action has been in retaliation to something Gaza did, to something Hamas did. So yes, all those 15,000 people, terrible. Guess who could stop it today? Hamas. They could release all the hostages. Think about, you know what? When we're engaged in warfare, in generally speaking, in the Western world, since the medieval times, when casualties are horrible and civilians are dying, there's a way for a responsible government to stop it from happening. It's pretty old tactic, actually. You put up a white flag and you surrender and you say, okay, enough. That would end it pretty quickly. What was that phrase she used? This despicable.
You don't see Israeli soldiers raping.
Well, Dana, I
Palestinian
think
women.
we're not, I don't want this to be the hierarchy of oppressions. I
Right.
think
The hierarchy of oppressions. Oh, sure, innocent Israeli women were raped and sexually assaulted, but Palestinians don't have fuel.